Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show, where my very special guest is the wonderful Sarah Class. How are you, Sarah?
I'm very well, thank you, Andrew. And yourself?
Oh, not too bad, actually. Not too bad. Thank you for asking. It's always very sweet.
Very.
Whereabouts are you today?
I'm in Bristol. And it's sun is shining. It's a pretty lovely day.
We love Bristol and Bath and that sort of whole West Country. It's a glorious place, isn't it?
It's so lovely. Where are you speaking
I'm
from?
based right by Regent's Park, so right in the heart of London. But one of the places that I always used to love going as a child was over to the Isle of Wight, where you grew up. And what I love, what they always say, it was Socrates, wasn't it, who said, show me a child until the age of 7 and I'll show you the full-grown adult. And that sort of early days, those early days on the Isle of Wight, being on a nature reserve, that was a real inspiration for you, wasn't it?
It was such an inspiration. My father really helped with that. You know, he was always getting us to classify plants because he's a scientist, and I just loved it anyway. I'd sort of walk around the woods, humming like a mad little creature to myself, and being on the beach looking for shells. And I loved it. So I have a lot to thank, for my
Oh, it's
father.
wonderful. And the great beaches on the Isle of Wight as well.
Yeah.
They stretch for miles and miles, don't they?
There's some lovely beaches, and there's so much of a variety of terrain. Actually, you've got gorgeous cliffs and woodlands and valleys, and I think it's still very much back in time. When was the last time you went?
Oh, just I actually took my mother just last year, just before lockdown,
Amazing.
and we had a wonderful time over there. And they used to have, I remember going as a kid, they used to have these little vials of sand in all lots of different colours, which is glorious. Do you still have family over there?
Yes, my parents live there, and the dog Moppet.
Poppet.
um,
What sort of
Mop,
dog is Poppet?
it was Moppet
Oh,
because
Moppet. Okay.
mop everything up. She's a little cockapoo,
I,
very cute, really sweet. Has
I,
added a lot of energy and life to my parents, especially through lockdown. Actually, it's really
It
helped.
must be tricky, isn't it? I mean, presumably you are they socially and obviously socially distanced, but are they technologically aware? Can you talk to them via the
Yes,
different
actually,
platforms?
my mother's good on FaceTime and also on the computer. She's getting there. My father's pretty good as well, actually. But we have moments where where I get a phone call and please help me. There's this thingy on the thingy and I can't move it to the other thingy, and I'm like, what thingy?
I know it does get confused, but I'll tell you what, that has been the way that people have connected. And the other way of connecting is obviously through music and that sort of the wonderful spiritual side, and music and nature in particular. And you've combined both because you work with the Woodland Trust and the fantastic work that you and Sir David Attenborough have been doing on that front. Talk to me about that charity and the saving of these fantastic woodlands and rainforests and so on and so forth. Talk to me
Yeah.
about that work.
Well, it's actually not to get confused with Woodland Trust. This is Worldland Trust, but they're a small charity that pack a massive punch because they they raise funds across the world to work with their partners in different areas. So there's huge amounts of rainforests and other natural habitat, and by protecting that land, they also protect these endangered species that live there. For example, there's their recent campaign, which the music that I just written for my album was their soundtrack.
Natural high, absolutely. They say that it
Right.
helps them
Yeah,
raise more than £600,000. Phenomenal.
I know, and because I like to think the music has a large impact on that, but I think they actually exceeded the the amount. They've gone to nearly a million. I think over a million now. So just it's incredible what you can do, and that was during 2020. So
It is incredible. And it's
yeah,
not just about, people always talk about the figures, but it's actually what that money helped do,
yes,
because
what
you
yeah,
saved, didn't you? You
yeah,
saved a massive part
yeah,
of that very important thing. And as you say, it's very different. Make sure it's not the Woodland Trust. It sounds very thing. It is the World Land Trust. So
yeah,
make
they're
sure you get your
everywhere. And I mean, that particular campaign was to save the last 2% of Ecuador's Choco forest. And but the great thing is, I think they could actually buy so much more now because they have this extra funds, and people are really responding well. You know, and it's one that David Attenborough really cites as making a huge difference. Is if you give your money to Wildland Trust, you can be absolutely assured this money goes straight to buy that land, and that's protected. You know, so
And it is quite shocking, isn't it, Sarah? Because as you say, it's the last 2%.
I know.
2%. So the other 98%, and not so long ago, all of that is gone.
Well, it's not all gone. I think there's you know it's just that it's an area that was up to be bought, and I mean there's replanting and all sorts of things going on. But yes, for that particular area of the Choco forest, because it's got an endangered spider monkey, that's one species that's only a few hundred left, like 300 or 400 left. So yes, perhaps that was the last 2% of that forest. There is other forests in Ecuador, but yes, it's
Well, of
scary.
course. I mean, they always say lies, damn lies and statistics, but it's the way that you grab the media attention, isn't it? I mean, you turn
Yes,
around and say
yeah,
2%, this is the last 2% because of this particular thing. And I think the
yes,
other way of doing it, the other way of getting the campaign, as you say, is you say, look, here's an endangered spider monkey.
yes,
And you shine a spotlight on that. And
yes.
people all of a sudden realize the impact.
Yes, I think that's the way of doing it. And you know, there's lots of animals there that aren't as cuddly as a leopard or a monkey or a orangutan, but are so important to our ecosystem. I mean, everything is in perfect balance. We need everything. We need our trees. We need our little insects, our bees. Everything comes together. We rely on it. You know, we if we protect it, then it'll protect us.
Yeah,
And
and you talk about, I mean, one of the common themes in your work is about the power and the magic of nature and vibrations and spiritual vibrations. Talk to me a bit about that.
well, I think it's something actually, Andrew, that affects all of us, and some of us are aware, and perhaps many of us are not aware. It's harder in a big city to know what is happening in the atmosphere. You know, we're not connected to big mountains, and especially if we've been brought up in that environment. If we don't see the sea, but when we go there, something happens to us. You know, we are transformed by nature very often. We are uplifted, and I believe that there is this other layer to nature. You know, we know that there's positive and negative ions, and it's negative ions that affect us when we go to the ocean and things. But there's more than that. I think there's this energy, this vibration that is very much alive. It's a watchful, alive vibration that is all part of this bigger whole. And this it's almost like nature's soul. And we feel good when we are in a green space, when we see green. There's this wonderful quote. I walked into the forest and I walked out taller than the trees. You know, that is the feeling that we get when we have lovely sunshine, we're on the top of a mountain, or just walking through any type of green, which is why I think the trees, if I may bring up HS2, it's so important that we preserve these woodlands. This is our legacy, and this is what's going to preserve us in the long run. And David Attenborough's right, the time is now, we have to act. So it's this spiritual vibration is not to be underestimated.
Oh, no, and I think that's right. And again, sort of shining a spotlight on that. And people at the moment, obviously, with lockdown, it's very, very difficult, but you're allowed to exercise. And we would always encourage, where you can, just get out and walk, be outside.
Yes,
Because the
exactly.
impact on your mental health is so positive, isn't it?
Yes, it's so positive. There's been scientific tests to show that, if a patient is lying in a hospital and can see green outside, they're going to recover more quickly. And particularly, as you rightly point out, lockdown is a case in question. We've been forced to reassess our relationship with nature. We actually are. It's kind of more microscopically looking at it now, I think, and the effect it has when we just go for a little walk, because our freedom is compromised, and we're all feeling that. This is driven home much harder, I think, now. And for one, I mean, I always love nature, but I'm appreciating these little moments. I mean, only this morning, just before we started talking, I saw two goldfinches just,
Ah, beautiful.
and I hadn't seen any, and I've been wishing to see them. And I thought, well, you know, that just made me uplifted.
Oh no, well, this is what we like to do on the Andrew Eborn show. We like to deliver surprises. So the goldfinch is a little present from us.
Yes, it was for us.
One of those. But this is what I love, because in your video for Natural High as well, you are wandering through all the forests and all sorts of wonderful birds and things like that. Whereabouts was that shot?
Well, the opening was in South America, but I was being shot in the Cotswolds,
Ah,
not far from Bristol. Actually, it's a beautiful area of the Cotswolds, and there's so many hidden valleys and woods there. So I think it needed to be. It
well, I,
needed.
I thought there was that sort of juxtaposition. I thought, hang about, this is maybe not the same location. It sounded like the most expensive shoot ever, because you start off in your rainforest, and then there's a little bit of the Cotswolds. I thought it was the Cotswolds, but I love the Cotswolds. It's like the little chocolate box cottages and things, isn't it?
So lovely, that Cotswold stone, and I look, you know, when you go past them, you think, if only I just go back to that little cottage and have some toasted tea cakes, sit by the fire, you know, instead of going back to Bristol. Yeah. But you know, one day I shall live fully in the countryside, which is a dream.
But Bristol is, I mean, it's the heart of creativity. There's all
It,
Banksy comes from
yeah,
Bristol. I think that's when the first one's there. And he's brilliant at encapsulating the moment. One of the things I particularly liked about the current time is they are re-evaluating everything, including our heroes, and his wonderful picture, if you like, where he depicted a child, and next to the child was a bin, and in the bin they had Batman and Wonder Woman and Spider-Man, all discarded for the moment, because the child was playing with an NHS nurse, which was the biggest new hero, which I thought just encapsulated it beautifully.
it's amazing with that creativity in Bristol. Everything is around you, and also Bristol has that energy about it, which is hard to resist. Because you know, I thought I'd maybe just go to Bristol for a few years, but it sucks you in because it's a great city to live in. It's full of artists and, as you say, and musicians, and it's got a big vibe. So I love it.
The great thing about the artistic world as well is that people, it's fairly small in terms of collaborating, and people get spotted fairly easily sometimes. If you're out there doing things, people will see you. Talk to me about your relationship with Sir George Martin.
Oh yes, well that was I've said this before, but it was a dream come true. I really wanted to work with him. I didn't actually ever write to him because I was at that point I was thinking it was more like, oh, I'd love it if I could work with George Martin, and wasn't sure how. And then an agent was interested in representing me, and he had some connection for providing orchestral facilities for Sir George. So one day he got an email saying, we would love to look at some other composers that you have, because George wants to slow down a bit. I mean, it wasn't like he was retiring, but I think he wanted somebody to help him take over some of the, you know, composing or orchestrating or any kind of music thing that he needed doing. And he sent off my CD and some other people's, and they went through it and chose mine. And it really just happened like that. Things don't happen very often like that, but I went up to meet him, and I remember bringing some fruitcake with me because I don't know why, but I just thought, I bet you there's no cake. So usually there is at Air Studios where he was. There's
Yes,
usually,
absolutely.
yes, and we had a wonderful meeting, and we sat next to each other, and I don't know, I have got a bit of a quirky, not naughty sense of humor, and I didn't realize he said something, and I said something, and he just started chuckling at what I said, which, you know, I was quite glad, because he was a little deaf, and, you know, but I was sitting right next to him, and he's just got this wicked sense of humor as well, which immediately put me at ease. And they ended up representing me through George Martin music. And
What was that little thing that he said?
sorry.
What did he say?
Uh, oh well, I can't remember. It was a joke. It was a joke about. It was just a sort of passing joke, very dry, and I can't remember the actual words. But there's been many times, you know, um, he's yeah, he's very frank. He'll be frank about whoever, Paul McCartney, you know, and he'll tell you these great stories, um, and you can't help but just, I don't know.
It is
Love that
wonderful, yeah.
honesty.
And it is wonderful when you have that sort of honesty. What was your favourite Paul McCartney story?
Oh no, he was just telling me about the the latest album of Paul at the time, which was I think Run Devil Run. But yes, it's because we were talking about music, and he was talking about, well, you know, Burt Bacharach and how amazing Burt Bacharach is, and how everybody should be, you know, that should be a great example to everybody. And he, you know, he was quite honest with my music. You know, if he would tell me about a song that I just written and say, well, you know, I think you should, you know, that bit doesn't really work, or you need to amplify this bit. And Burt Bacharach would have, you know, just think about the melody and things, you know. And I'm always thinking about the melody. He's written me some lovely letters, and I felt that he was very supportive, and um, just a person that I aspired. He has that integrity, and you know, that's I really drew me to him because of that musical integrity, his integrity as a person, but at the same time, he was not stuffy. So I love that. Did you ever meet him?
Yes, absolutely, and you're right. He's one of those sort of characters that instantly, actually, like Paul, to be fair, who
Yeah.
has a lot of time for everybody,
Oh,
and
yes, I'd love to meet Paul McCartney as well.
but they
And
put
he was
you
very,
exactly at ease. And I think what happens is when people meet various celebrities or people in the public eye, you occasionally get different reports. You get some people say, "Oh, when I met them, they were really grumpy," or "When I met them, they were really grumpy." And the honest answer is both of those events are true, because
both
in
of those
our
events.
lives we have good moments and bad moments, don't we?
Yes, exactly. We have everything, and you know, there are people that you wouldn't want to meet your heroes. You know, and everybody. It's hard. It must be hard being in the public eye so intensely like that, because you're always being, you know, you're always being asked to do
You're always
things.
on public show, and I think the reality is, as Shakespeare said, you know, if you prick me, do I not bleed? We are all the same. Tickle me, do I not laugh? We have our good moments and bad moments. And what I particularly like at the moment is when people are talking about things like mental health. And one of the initiatives that I started was something called Canned Laughter. It's okay not to be okay. And it's shining a spotlight on
Yes,
people who are struggling, especially in these difficult times, and
yes,
listening to people in the public eye, from the royals who are opening up to various other celebrities, saying, look, we have these troubles. It's okay to talk about it, because then people
yes,
don't feel alone.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think it's, you know, this week has been it's a tough week for lots of reasons, and but I think there is a collective sort of a collective sadness at the moment that you can actually feel in the air. And I think people are feeling alone. They're thinking, when is this going to end? And it will end. You know, we are going through some kind of metamorphosis as well. I think it's not just about, right, we're going to pick up where we left off. I think we need to think through things in a different way. We will have to be a little bit different, you know. But on the other hand, you know, there is an end in sight, and it's just trying to find your joy within the parameters that we've been given. And for me, it's the little things in life, you know, like the beautiful goldfinches, and
Yes.
you know, like looking at a beautiful rose, or just a little walk in the countryside, or just checking out the sky, because that's endless. And you know, we we will continue, and we'll overcome things, but it's just hard being in the middle of everything right now.
And music, of course. I mean,
And music, yes, music is a great freedom.
that's your natural high.
That's my natural high. Yes, yes, I go there.
No, fantastic. So tell a couple of things. I mean, tell me firstly, what did Sir George think of your fruitcake?
Oh, he loved the fruitcake. That
Yourself.
was a winner. That was a real winner. I think it was obviously a heaven sent idea, because you know, we had to have fruitcake. We all sat round, and Giles was there, and his son, and Giles is also extremely funny. You know, he can be very irreverent and very funny, and come up with lots of things. He said, well, my dad really loves your music, and
No, that's great.
yeah.
I can tell you, Air Studios has seen a few fruitcakes in its time. Good.
I'm probably another one as well.
But we love that. This is what we love, is celebrate life's eccentrics and things like that.
Yes.
What about Sir David Attenborough? How's your relationship with him?
Oh well, my last meeting with Sir David was an interesting one, because I'd done this video, I Will Fight, and it was
Great
about.
video. I love your videos.
You love it. I'm so glad. So I at that point, so David wasn't. He wasn't really particularly wanting to come out as an activist in any way, or to be too blunt with what's going on. You know. So um, it was just the beginnings. It was beginnings, and when we met, it was difficult for me because it was a very last minute thing. It's like, yes, David will do. Will do the recording, and because he's Worldland Trust, patron of Worldland Trust, and I'm an ambassador for Worldland Trust, that was a good thing. But I think he was going to do Blue Planet. He was off to fly somewhere. He was under pressure because he also had a cold and he was waiting for a phone call. So, you know, we had to kind of set up in 20 minutes. It was just me in the end. The director, she couldn't come because she had some child issues. She couldn't find anyone to look after the kid, and so I directed it. I had lots of speeches that were his speeches from Worldland Trust, and without going through the whole story, he had decided, I think, a lot of the speeches he said, oh well, I didn't say that. I said, well, this is your speech from BAFTA. And so my heart was sinking because we got up at 4 a.m. to come from Bristol, and the cameraman was obviously, you know, having to get his stuff together under pressure, and there was this sort of pressure, and then and I asked him to say things, and he was very good, but you could tell that he was a little under the weather. And at the very end, and I was feeling a little stressed because he was feeling pressure, I was feeling pressure, and it was weird because I had a parcel, a little present for him. I really wanted to give him a present, but he was very
not a fruit cake. It's
not a fruitcake, and he was in a kind of, as you say, some people go through those moods where you could tell they're
we all do. I mean, that's human.
Yes, but you know, I love and respect for David Attenborough, you know that. But I was thinking, oh, perhaps this is a bad idea to give him this present because he's under pressure. He needs to make this phone call, and you know, we need to wrap this up. And but I got everything out of him that I wanted to, which was great. He did everything. We got it all. And so I gave him the present because I thought, oh, I've got it now. I'll give it to him. And he looked at me, and I said, do you have this? I wanted to give you this present because I'm really grateful for you doing this for us. It's brilliant. And the Worldland Trust are, you know, very, very grateful too. And he opened it, and I'd given him this bird book. And this bird book played, you press a button and it played every single British bird.
I love that book. I've got that.
Have you?
Love it.
And I thought he would have it. And he went, no, I don't have it. And he broke out into this massive smile and gave me this massive hug.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, the moment was transformed. And I was just thought, I'm so glad I've given him something that he would find useful. And then he said, I'll be back in a minute. And he went off to make his phone call. And Mike, the cameraman, said, you know, Sarah, that was a great present because I only just heard him on Radio 4 saying that his only regret was that he didn't know his British bird song. And I was like, wow, that made me feel really good. So, you know, we had a bit of a debrief over a greasy spoon down the road somewhere. And, you know, suddenly we could breathe. But it was, in the end, it was great. And
it is those sort of moments, isn't it? And it's those little things that make a difference. I mean, last time I saw him was just down the road from us on Marylebone High Street, and he was in the Oxfam shop with his lovely wife, again looking at books. There are a few of his books in there, but obviously, but he adores books. They are such a good present. And what I love about lockdown, there are lots of positive things where people are reevaluating things, is what I love about it is people are reading more as well, aren't they? And so book sales, real book sales are going through the roof. And so the independent booksellers, to the extent they're allowed to deliver books or make them available for collection, that's great from that point of view. But people have to think a bit more, aren't they?
Yes, I think so. Give me a real book any day. I still don't have a Kindle. I might be pressured one day to have one, but I love real books, and this has been a great thing, is to be able to be a bit of a hermit, write my music, read more books, and it's funny how we're kind of coming back to a lot of things that actually make us stop and just, you know, be in bit more present and still. And reading is like that, you know, not always having. Of course, we're going to be binge watching Netflix and things, but there's still those moments where we can be quieter you know, and reflect a bit more. I think lockdown is, you know, I'm sure it's made people. There's been busier times. I know, you know, I was just talking to my publisher, and he was just saying to me, actually, I have been so busy. I've been more busy and inundated than before, because I usually used to have a moment in the taxi or going flying in an airplane where I could be quiet and nobody would call me. So everybody's got a different thing going on in lockdown. But I do think.
But you're right about reevaluating things. I mean, you in your own life, I mean, 3 times Emmy Award winning, you've got your Sir George Martin, you've given him fruitcake, you've given your something with Attenborough, songs of praise, you did that, you write for everybody, all that sort of stuff. What have been in your view, your greatest achievements?
Well, I think I loved writing Cantamus, this girls' choir. It was, you know, a lot of people. Africa was a good achievement. This BBC Africa, David Attenborough.
The soundtrack for that, fantastic. The theme tune, I
Yeah,
love all of that.
thank you. That was, but I think I loved so much the Aurora Cantamus with this. They're all aged 12 to 18. These girls. And that's hit the top of the charts in the classical, in classic FM and the classical charts. And I think also this new album, and I say that because I think it feels like it's truly authentically me, because I've dabbled in lots of areas. I love singer-songwriter, you know, that kind of Americana folk music. I just love melody. And I think for me, um, anything that has good melodies and makes you feel so great. You know, I love writing music like that. And I don't know what about Cantamus, probably because it had the choir, it had the, you know, the orchestra, and you were able to do so much with lyrics as well. I love that. And the same with this album. I just thought I'll just write what I feel. So, you know, that I think that those are the main two. There's other things, but particularly those.
Well, we'll get you back to talk about the other things as well. But Sarah Class, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up. I love the album. I love the video shot somewhere in the Amazon and also somewhere in the Cotswolds on the hills. Good luck with all of that. But for now, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Lovely to see you.
I'll be seeing you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So thank you very much to Sarah Class for joining me to talk about her album Natural High and her relationship with all the knights of the realm, Sir David Attenborough, Sir George Martin. Absolutely wonderful. But it does show that we are all the same. If you prick me, do I not bleed? If you tickle me, do I not laugh? If you have any views on any of these things, please don't hesitate to let me know. Write at guests@octopustv.com. That's guests@octopustv.com. And don't forget, you can follow me at Andrew Eborn at Octopus TV, and you can subscribe on all of the usual platforms. But for me, for now, enjoy your fruitcakes. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.